Hello students, welcome to this video tutorial on using probability to make predictions. We can use probability and proportions or ratios to make predictions about the future. So let's see what this looks like. Example 1. So we have a coin here. We're going to flip the coin 50 times. Predict how many times you will get heads. Now, if we're going to predict, okay, using ratios, then we're actually not going to flip the coin 50 times. We're going to use math to predict how many times we would get heads. So I've broken it down into two steps. Step 1, find the probability first, okay? So that part should be pretty easy. So the probability of heads equals, now remember, there are two possible outcomes, heads or tails. And the favorable outcome of heads occurs only one time. So we have a simple probability fraction of 1/2. Now I don't want you to convert it to decimals or percents. We're going to leave it as fractions because we're going to use proportions or ratios. So step 2, set up a ratio and cross multiply. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this probability as the first fraction in our ratio. So I'm going to set it up over here. Okay, so our first ratio, our first fraction is 1/2. That's the probability. And we're going to make it equal to another fraction. Now, how do we figure out what the numerator and the denominator is? Well, the denominator, I want you to look up here for this number because we're going to flip the coin 50 times. So that's going to be our new denominator here, 50. Okay, now what's our x? What's our numerator going to be? Well, it's unknown. It's x. We need to calculate for x. Okay, so hopefully you've learned this method before of cross multiplying. Cross multiplying simply means we take the numerator of one fraction and we multiply it by the denominator of the other, and we also do the same with the other fraction. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Let's do this one at a time here. So 1 times 50, the numerator of one fraction times the denominator of the other, 1 times 50 equals 50. Equals 2 times x, the denominator of one fraction times the numerator of the other fraction, equals 2x. Okay, so you learn from our algebra unit that we want x alone. So in this case, what we have to do to both sides is we have to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 cancels each other out, and we're left with x. And then 50 divided by 2 equals 25. Now, I switched the x and the 25 on either side of the equation, but you get what I mean, okay? Now, if we're talking strict algebra rules here, we would have to write it 25 equals x. So this 25 represents how many times we would get heads if we flip the coin 50 times. Now, we can use another method to solve for step 2. Okay, so if you like this method better, you can use this method. So we start with our first fraction, our probability fraction, and then we simply multiply it by how many times we're going to conduct the experiment. So in this case, it was 50 times. So we simply multiply it by 50. Now, whenever we multiply a fraction by a whole number has a denominator, it's just that we don't write it in, and the denominator is 1. Okay? So to remember how to multiply fractions is very easy. We simply multiply the numerator, and then we multiply the denominator. So let's do that together. Okay? So our numerator, 1 times 50 is 50. Our denominator is 2 times 1, or 2. And what this means is 50 divided by 2, which is 25. This answer and this answer should be the same because we're essentially doing the same thing. Okay, so therefore, we will get heads 25 times. Okay, so that's how we use a ratio or a proportion. They're the same thing. Proportions are ratios. Okay, So let's see if you understood any of that. Let's go on to example 2. This time, not flipping a coin, we're rolling the number cube. Number cube has 6 sides, okay? And we're going to roll it 60 times. Predict how many times you will roll a 5 or a 2. Okay. Step 1, find the probability first. So we've had this question before. We've done this question before. 5 or 2. Okay, so I'm going to delay a second. I want you to put in that fraction. Okay. So we know that the total number of outcomes when we roll a number cube is 6. And for the numerator, we have a 5 or a 2. So there are 2 favorable outcomes. So hopefully you got a starting fraction of 2 over 6, but hopefully you did something else to this fraction and reduce it to its lowest term. Okay, that's just going to make life easier when we go on to step 2. All right, step 2, set up a ratio and cross multiply. All right, so our first fraction is the probability that we just calculated for right here, 1/3. Now, 2/6 will work as well. It's just going to cause us another step down the road. Now, can you set up the second fraction? How did we get the denominator again? Well, for the denominator, we have to look back to the question. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to roll the number cube 60 times. So the 60 is going to be our new denominator. What is our numerator? Well, the numerator is unknown. Okay, it's question mark. All right, cross multiplying. Remember how we did this? Now, it doesn't matter which one you do first. So in this case, I'm going to do the denominator of the first fraction times the numerator of the second fraction, just to show you that it doesn't matter. Now, if I do it this way, I get the 3x on the left-hand side of the equation. 3 times x is 3x. And then if I multiply the numerator of this fraction times the denominator of this fraction, 1 times 60 equals 60. Pretty easy numbers to work with, right? Now, use a little algebra here. I want x alone. What do I have to do to both sides? Do you remember? So let's divide both sides by 3. Okay? 3 divided by 3 cancels each other out. We're left with x equals 60 divided by 3 equals 20. Okay, so let's use the other method to do step 2 as well. Let's practice them, and that way you can choose which one you like better. So we start with our probability fraction, 1/3, and then we multiply it by the number of times this experiment is taking place. So if we're multiplying it by 60 times, that is a fraction of 60 over 1. Okay? All right, so while I change pens here, I want you to try and come up with the new fraction. Remember, when we multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators, and then we multiply the denominators. So 1 times 60 is 60. 3 times 1 is 3. Now remember, this fraction symbol here simply means divide. So this means 60 divided by 3 equals 20. Okay? So can you figure out what the therefore statement is going to be? So I'm going to start with my therefore symbol, and I'm going to give you a 10-second head start, and we'll see if we come up with the same conclusion statement. So remember, for these conclusion statements, you don't have to go into a lot of depth here, a lot of description. So how about we will roll a 5 or a 2 20 times. Okay? All right. So what you have to understand is when we use math to make these predictions, it's not always going to be 20 times that we roll a 5 or a 2. But in terms of mathematical rules, it should be 20 times. But we can do that experiment and we could probably come up with 21 times, 30 times, 15 times, 19 times. Okay? All right. So that's the difference between theoretical probability and experimental probability. Experimental probability is when we actually do the experiment with a number cube, with a coin, with a spinner. Okay? All right, let's look at the last example. Example 3. Spin the spinner 802 times. See, this is an experiment that you wouldn't want to do because you'd have to do it 802 times. Predict how many times you will land on a number less than 3. So let's look at the spinner here. So it's a spinner that has 5 equal sections, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's good to know. All right, find the probability first. Okay, so let me set it up here. Probability of a number less than 5. Okay, so I want you to figure that out. All right, so we know that the total number of outcomes is 5 because there's only 5 sections on the spinner. And how many numbers do we have that are less than 5? Well, we have 1 is less than 5, 2 is less than 5, 3 is less than 5, and 4 is less than 5. So hopefully you got a probability fraction of 4 over 5. Can this fraction be reduced any further? No. All right, so are you ahead of me? I want you to set up a ratio. So how about I give you a head start here? So 4/5 is our first fraction. That's easy enough. And what did you set up as the second fraction? Did you get x over 802? Weird fraction, isn't it? Okay, are you still ahead of me? Have you done the cross multiply? So we get 5x equals 4 times 802. I hope you took out your calculator. 4 times 802, I got 3,208. Okay, so we have a 5x. We want x alone, so we have to divide both sides by 5. Here we get x because 5 divided by 5 is 1 or 1x. And then when we divide 3,208 by 5, we're not going to get a clean number, are we? So using your calculator, hopefully you got 641.6. Now this is a little odd here, this decimal. So we're going to come back to this, okay? All right, what about the other method for step 2? So let me give you a head start. Now, I hope you realize that the other method for step 2, the two methods that I've shown you for step 2 are essentially exactly the same. Okay, so I got 3,208 3,208 divided by 5. Okay, 3,208 divided by 5 equals 641.6. Okay, so let's look at this answer now. Okay, so when we answer these predictions, we don't want to have any decimals, so we have to do a little bit of rounding. I know, you're going to have to do it. Okay, so we're always going to round to the nearest ones column. So the ones column has to be the last column because we want a whole number. So in order to do that, we have to look at the tenths column. And the rule is, if the tenths column number is 5 or greater, then the ones column bumps up by 1. If the number in the tenths column is less than 5, then the number in the ones column stays the same. So because the number in the tenths column is greater than 5, it's 6, what happens to the number in the ones column? Yes, it bumps up. Okay? All right, so let's put our therefore statement. Therefore, we will land on a number less than 5, 642 times. Okay? So a little bit of rounding review. The good thing is for these questions, you only have to round to the nearest ones. So the ones column, so you only have to remember the one rule. Okay, so I hope that made some sense. Thanks for watching. Bye.